Andrew Gillum, who just won the Democratic primary for governor of Florida, was on MSNBC's Morning Joe. And I think he gave some fantastic answers to some, I guess, fair questions, but I have some criticisms of MSNBC as well. First up, let's go to this question from Mike Barnicle.
Every citizen of every state is concerned with, I'm sure, many of the issues that you just spoke about: health care, teacher salaries, good schools for their children, their children's future. But every state, like Florida, has a problem in terms of how do you maintain the fiscal health of the state. So what specifically are you going to do, other than raising taxes in Florida, to maintain the fiscal health of your state?
Okay. Before I get to the answer, I have to address the question. These people are always so proud of themselves. Whenever they ask a progressive, how do you pay for it, or fiscal responsibility, you could see the smugness on their face. Look, that question is fine if you also ask that question when there's increases in military spending or tax cuts for the rich, but they don't. The question of fiscal responsibility and how do you pay for it only ever come up when politicians are running on investing into people. If you want to invest into education or healthcare, that's the only time you hear that fiscal question. It's maddening. And it's because the people on television are very wealthy. Mike Barnicle has a lot of money. His view of the world is not the typical American view. So you can't expect to get actual journalism from these millionaires when they don't live your life. And the other part of this, you can't mention raising taxes in your answer? Like, what? How do you ask a question about fiscal responsibility, but say, oh, don't mention raising taxes? No. Other than raising taxes, how are you going to address these issues? Why? Why can't he mention raising taxes? Is it because you don't want your taxes raised? Again, this is the millionaire perspective. Oh, don't talk about raising taxes. How else are you going to pay for these things? Of course, raising taxes should be part of it. Now, let's get to Gillum's answer here that I think is just absolutely fantastic.
So what specifically are you going to do, other than raising taxes in Florida, to maintain the fiscal health of your state?
Yeah, well, Florida doesn't lack in many ways for the resources that we need. Our problem is where we have decided to place those resources. Whether we're going to continue to give major tax breaks to corporations and to very expensive luxury items, or whether we're going to invest that money in our children. Are we going to realign the political system in this state to pour more resources into education over the incarceration of our youth? In this state, we spend about $7,500 a year in educating a kid and north of $30,000 a year to incarcerate. There's a mismatch in priorities there. It's important to me that we look top to bottom at our budget. Yes, we're going to ensure that everybody pays their fair share. Regular, everyday working people of this state already pay our fair share. It's time to ensure that corporations also contribute to the pot in such a way that, frankly, enriches them. When we produce good educated talent, that provides a great workforce for them. When we pour into our next generation technology, that helps the corporations. We become a state that people want to locate in, and corporations want to locate in, when we produce good, solid, qualified talent to fuel our workforce. I think that's the vision we want to try to elevate, not a low-wage economy where people have to work multiple jobs in order to make ends meet.
Fantastic. This is Andrew Gillum is he's not only a great politician in terms of his ability to speak and deliver this message, but he's also correct on the issues. So he mentions there corporations have to pay their fair share, which I'm sorry, Mike Barnicle, yes, means raising taxes. I know you don't want that in your answer for whatever reason, but yes, that's part of the equation. And also he talks about how you have to invest into your people in terms of like education. So if you're spending more money incarcerating people than educating people, what kind of society do you create? You create a society where there are a lot, there's more people per capita in jail in the US than any country on earth. So that's a problem. When you don't invest into education, but you invest into incarceration, that's a broken system. You have to change how that works. And Gillum is so fantastic on this, and I'm glad he understands this. Now, let me get to the last clip here. And this is a fun question always, too. How do you get Trump voters? Let's find out.
Florida is a very swingy state. You do need to reach these people. So what is your message to perhaps the most committed Trump voter, the person who's watching Fox News, probably seeing Ron DeSantis on right now? What is your message to them about why they should vote for you?
Well, I'll tell you, we believe we've got to talk to Floridians, and largely Floridians who have chosen not to participate in this political process because they don't believe in it anymore. Talking about Donald Trump and reminding folks of how bad he is and how unqualified he is for the job that he holds doesn't do anything to ensure that they're able to make ends meet. Doesn't do anything to ensure that they get access to good health care and a good education system and 21st century transportation and a clean and good environment. So we tried to talk about those things, but without a doubt, we know that Donald Trump looms in the shadows here. We know that for Hurricane Maria survivors who were largely in the I-4 corridor, that they have felt completely disrespected by this president. For Haitian Americans in South Florida and all over this state who feel completely disrespected by the rhetoric of this president when it comes to how he refers to their homeland. What we're going to do, however, is to stay very, very super concentrated on what are the experiences, the everyday lived experiences of people in this state, and what we as the next governor of the state can do to make their lives better. I would suggest that anybody across this country who is running in these races, that we focus on the people first. They've been let down so many times by our political system. And in order for a candidate like me to win, I've got to be able to turn out those voters who are highly skeptical of the political process, don't feel like it works for them anymore, and are looking for a champion, a voice. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to see themselves reflected. And I think that's what we did in this primary race, and that's going to be critical to winning in the general. And that applies to rural Florida, suburban Florida, or urban Florida. If your kids are being high stakes tested, if you've got to work multiple jobs, if your number one concern is going bankrupt over an illness that could impact you any day of the week, then you want a governor like me who's going to focus on that.
So that was just a perfect answer. He addressed the question in the way that you should address this question. It's not about going after Trump voters. It's about speaking to the actual issues, the issues that affect people's lives, whether it's wages, education, healthcare. These are issues that if you speak to them and speak about how you're going to improve their lives on them, like being specific on them, like a $15 minimum wage or Medicare for all, then that excites people to come out and vote for you. The media is always so focused on how do you get conservative voters, how do you get liberal voters, but they completely ignore this 40% of people that just don't vote ever. How do you get them? If you get non-voters to come out and vote for you, you win. That's what the focus should be from mainstream press here. So look, if you're still a Trump voter or a Trump supporter, and and you follow the news, you are either a billionaire because he's improved your lives with the tax cut, or you only care about cultural issues. You only care about him supporting white supremacy. I mean, what other reason is there to still support Donald Trump? I get it if you are completely uninformed, you don't follow the news closely enough, you don't know what he's done, then sure, maybe you support Trump because you still think he's fighting for you. But if you actually follow what's going on and you support Trump, the only reason to do so is if you are a white nationalist, a white supremacist, a Nazi. That is the only reason, or you're a billionaire. So that's the focus can never be how do you get Trump voters? It always should be on how do you get non-voters. And I think Andrew Gillum answered that perfectly. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button below and consider becoming a patron at therationalnational.com/join. You get some extra content, but also, most importantly, you help support me in continuing to produce these sorts of videos.